Let's give a huge Cincinnati welcome to recent arrival and new friend, Tara Lake.
Hi, y'all. I love the soul-rending, epic tale-telling music of my family. And I've loved it my entire life, and I know it's absolutely my first love because I learned it and loved it in the womb. And this music has always told me about who I am. It's given me the keys to my personal and familial and spiritual and ancestral history. And the women who raised me, they're the ones that put that music there. And I have to say this, in case my father ever hears this, my dad is a very musical man. He loves the blues, he loves soul music, and he nurtured that in me. But this particular kind of music, this kind of ancestral tone, in my family, that is the work of women. And so because of that, each of these women in my mind, they sort of come with their own song in my memory. They have their own theme song, right? The songs are something like, I know it was the blood. I know it was the blood. I know it was the blood for me. That kind of music. And thank y'all. And that is my mother's early morning, dawn song. And I would hear it coming out of my sleep at some early, God-forsaken hour before the sun came up. And my mom would be in the kitchen, and I could hear the din of a mournful Christian sermon on the radio every day. And I could hear the percolator making the old-fashioned coffee pots, and I could hear the sizzle of the bacon while she was making breakfast for my dad. But the sound that I heard most clearly was that song. It resonated for me, and it told me that wherever I had been in my dreams, now I was home. And because of that, I was safe and I was loved. And I think that in that way, that music has always held me together with a kind of mother love. And my great-grandmother would be another example of this. And my great-grandmother had a song that I can never forget, and you'll learn why. But Mama was my mother's grandmother. She was our great-grandmother, and we went down there every year to see her. Now, we would drive on down from New Jersey because she lived on the family home down in South Carolina. And now, one year when I was about 8 years old, she had her 100th birthday. And all of us got together. We all came from north and south and east and west to see her. And in my part of the family clan, we all drove down, 19 of us, piled into a 15-passenger van, and we flew on down there. We flew on down I-95 to see Mama. Now, I'm just a child at the time, okay? But the entire time we're riding down there, everyone in the car keeps saying, well, now, this may be the last time we see Mama on this side. Yes, indeedy, you have just got to give folks their flowers while they are yet alive, because you just don't know. This could be her last birthday. And so we all went down there, and we celebrated Mama for 3 days. We sang, and we shouted. We brought flowers. We had church. We prayed. We feasted. As my folks would say, we just plumb had a funeral for Mama right there. Yes, we did. But Mama did not die that year. In fact, Mama didn't die for 9 more years. Thank y'all. So this whole time, we just kept on riding on down to Mama every year. And over time, it just became clear that Mama was not amused. You know, and it was sad because she had buried a number of her own children, and she'd had 16 children. She'd buried some of her own children and some grandchildren and even great-grandchildren. And her husband, my great-grandfather, had been dead for 40 years already. And you just got the sense from her that she felt as if she had had a good run, and she was, it's like she felt like she was ready to move on to other opportunities. And we would pull up and find her waiting on the porch for us. In the wee hours of the morning, she'd wait on the porch, and we'd find her singing. And she had a beautiful voice, even when she was older. And she would just sit on that porch and sing, more than a little suggestively, I wanna go where Jesus is. It was as if she was trying to remind God with the force of her singing that great chariot had maybe missed a stop somewhere in South Carolina. And if he could just bring that back around, that would be a blessing, But we love Mama. And so now, even before I can smell her cooking or see that porch, I remember her song. And Mama gave us so much. And one of the most important things she gave us was my grandmother. Now, Grandma was the mother of 8 children. And she was the one who staked us in New Jersey and planted us in a church there. And it was a sweet little church in a suburb in New Jersey. But it was really weird. It was like someone had picked up a whole southern county and just dropped it right in this church. And inside this church, it was like a time capsule. It was like nothing had changed since 1950 in South Carolina somewhere, except it was the 80s in Jersey. And we spent a lot of time there. Sometimes we spent like days on end. And y'all think I'm employing hyperbole. I'm not. We spent like days on end in this church. And sometimes on a weeknight service, if my grandmother was called to sing, she would come up and she would sing her song. And church folk know what I'm talking about, her song. And she'd sing, this old building, it keeps on leaning, Lord, I gotta find me a better home. And Grandma was my favorite grandparent. I loved sitting next to her in church. She had like a quick wit and a sharp tongue. And she'd cut you. She'd cut you in two. And it didn't matter to her whether it was like the bishop or a small child. She'd cut you. She would. And in a Christ-like way, of course. And with the love of Jesus, of course. But she'd cut you. And so Alzheimer's it's a really mean disease. It takes your loved ones bit by bit, and it kind of leaves a shell. And she's 96 now. And her quick wit is gone, and that sharp tongue has gone as well, and her memory with it. But up until a few years ago, I could still get her to sing her song. Keep on leaning, I gotta find me a better home. That was Grandma. And I love her. I just saw her last weekend. And so I mentioned that we come from a musical family. This music it means so much to me. And it's part of my folk heritage, but my family heritage and my religious heritage, it's all just mixed up. And so I was raised in this really musical family, but we were also in a very musical church body. And one year, this church body decided that they were going to devise a music conference. And I guess this is because like the six national conferences and dozens or so regional conferences, that wasn't enough. They needed a music conference as well. Something else for us to do. And so my mother and I, we went and joined family, friends, and family at this music conference. And on the second day of the music conference, at the junior choir rehearsal, I was selected to sing a solo. And I was so excited. I was 11 years old, and I just ran back from rehearsal. I had a tape recorder. We were very well prepared at these conferences. And I brought my tape recorder back with me, and I told my mom, I'm not going to dinner. I asked her for her leftovers. I barricaded myself in the room, and I practiced my part for 2 hours. And so when it was time to go down, it's this huge conference hall. I went down early. I was so excited. I took my place I was an alto. I took my place in the alto section, and I waited for the service to start. And everything went really fast. It was just like, boom. And before I knew it, the organist struck up some music, and I realized that it was my song. It was my song, y'all. I was so excited. And so, the music starts, and I walk up to the microphone. I'm trying to be cool. I'm walking up, and I get there, and I stand there, and the director is walking around, and she's fussing with things, and she's motioning to the musicians, and she walks over to my microphone, and she adjusts it, and she picks up the microphone, and she hands it to her daughter. And she just dismissed me with a soft nudge on my shoulder. And that was it. I just returned to the choir. This happened in front of 2,000 people. And it was like a knife in my stomach. It was so painful. It wasn't just the embarrassment. I just felt like something from my soul had been ripped away. And I made it through that song. And I made it through the next song, and somehow I made it through the remainder of the service. But I lost something that night. It was like the music that had meant so much to me wasn't mine anymore. And it seemed so cold and like businesslike. It was like something I could be hired and fired from, just like that. And I didn't know what to do with that. I didn't really have the stomach for that. And so after that, I sort of put that music down. That music, and with it, a huge part of my legacy and my heritage and the gift from the women in my family. I put that down, and I picked up academic studies instead. And I just began to wander wherever my studies took me as an adult. And that took me across 3 continents and across the US, and I finally ended up in Los Angeles, California. And maybe about 20 years, close to 20 years after that conference, I began to feel like this call to come home. And it was a lot of little things. I was in my late 20s by this point, and babies were being born, and people were getting married, and my grandmother was not doing well, and we decided to move her south. The family moved her south, and I wanted to go south too. And so I had been in Durham, North Carolina for about 2 months. Durham, yeah! in Durham, North Carolina for about 2 months. And, I got a call from my mother. Tara, it's your Aunt Babe's 90th birthday, and we're all going up there. All right. Now, Aunt Babe, y'all, Aunt Babe is my double great auntie, okay? Pay attention. She is the sister of my maternal grandfather and the wife of my maternal grandmother's brother. Got it? Double great auntie. Okay. So she's an important family matriarch. great family matriarch. And for her 90th birthday, she summoned all of us up to Washington, D.C. to celebrate with her. And so now this was sort of like my initiation into the family womanhood. So I planned this trip, I rented a car, I got us a hotel, and I was the one who's gonna drive us up to DC. And so now my mother, one of my aunts, another great aunt, and a godmother show up at my door in Durham, North Carolina. And I'm so excited. We all get into the car. This is my trip, and we're flying on up I-95. And the whole way up there, all the women in my family kept saying, well, now, this may be the last time we see Aunt Babe on this side. Yes, indeedy. You have just got to give folks their flowers while they are yet alive, because you just don't know. This could be her last birthday. Now, y'all already know that wasn't her last birthday. That's another story. And so we all get up there, the entire family converges, and we get to Washington, D.C. And y'all, this is hard scrabble, urban D.C. But we find ourselves at another church that time forgot. And inside, Weston, South Carolina, 1950. And just as we had done for Mama years ago, we just had a plum funeral for Aunt Babe right there. Yes, we did. We sang, and we shouted, and we had church, and we prayed, and we feasted. We had a good old time. And then the senior choir, they got up, and they sang in the old way. And that is like shape note a cappella, sung to raise the dead. Say, hear the Lord calling you for witness. Hear the Lord calling you for servant. Hear the Lord calling you for witness. And so after that moving hymn, thank y'all. After that moving hymn, the choir sits down and my mother pops up. Now my mother begins to pretend to whisper across the sanctuary to where I'm sitting on the other side of the church. Now wait, let me tell you what she's wearing, okay? Let me go back further. Let me tell you, my mom is 6'1", y'all, and she's wearing heels. She's 6'1", and she's wearing heels. And she has on like this imperial purple suit with like purple accessories, purple bag, purple hat, purple everything. And she stands up, and I say pretends to whisper because it's more like a shout, like a yell, right? And she's, oh wait, she does put up the excuse me Jesus finger. Tara, baby, do you want to sing? Do you want to sing? Now, at this point, all of the people in the church, they all turn to look at me. These folks are all my cousins, but they turn to look at me because they too want to know if I'm going to sing. Now, of course, I'm horrified, right? And I'm not surprised because this is my mama, but I am embarrassed, not deterred. Baby, do you want to sing? And now she gets a microphone and she starts miming in front of, do you want to sing, baby? Sing? Now, I was not a singer anymore, so I was going to say no. But then I looked ahead at my double great auntie. You want to sing, baby? Baby, do you want to sing? I looked ahead to my great auntie, my double great auntie, and she was looking beautiful and regal in a ruby red suit with a red hat and these heavy white pearls. And I realized that in that body was 90 years of my own history in every way imaginable. And like in that red suit was the blood that had carried me so far. And so I sang for her. I sang my heart's song. Great is thy faithfulness, Lord God, my Father. I sang it to honor her. And that is how I truly came home. That is how I truly joined that lineage of women in my family. And that was the day that I returned to the arms of my very first love. Thank you.
Keep the flowers coming for Tara Lake.